Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I'm your host for today and every other day, the Articulate Thinker, hopefully. Here to bring you art, articles, and articulation straight from Articulation Station, but today I have a monologue for you. So like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. Don't forget to turn on those bell notifications while you're at it. Here are a couple of headlines for a bit of additional context. The first one from ABC News. It reads, Carroll says she plans to use $83 million on something Donald Trump hates. Go figure. He's just something in a suit, Carroll said about seeing Trump in court. A day earlier, Nikki Haley was on Meet the Press. She had this to say: I absolutely trust the jury in Carroll's defamation case against Trump. That's what she said. The additional caption from Meet the Press reads, GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley says she trusts the findings in Carroll's defamation case against Trump, which found the former president liable for $83.3 million in damages. But she doesn't think Trump should be taken off the ballot as a result. That last part is besides the point. With all that taken into consideration, here is my monologue. I will read. You can react. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. Feel free to disagree with me on anything I may say, and I may say some things which you'll disagree with, but that's okay. Here it goes. In regards to Carroll's latest civil suit compensation of $83 million in defamation damages, Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley said in an interview on Meet the Press that she absolutely trusts the jury, and also that she thinks they made their decision based upon the evidence. However, if Haley had been asked to further describe the aforementioned evidence, I imagine she would have been unable to do so, seeing as how there is no evidence, other than the entirely unreliable allegation in and of itself as made by Carroll. Long story as short as possible, just over a year before the 2020 election, Carroll published a story, as she had a tendency to do, in which she accused President Donald Trump of sexually assaulting and raping her back in either 1995 or 1996. Can't be sure. In a New York City Bergdorf Goodman department store dressing room. Through a series of unusual events, to say the least. Trump denied the accusations, as to be expected, and shortly after, Carroll filed a defamation lawsuit against him because it's apparently defamatory to deny accusations of rape, but not to accuse someone of rape. Trump, being president at the time, was somewhat protected from the consequences. Plus, Carroll could only credibly, using that word very lightly, accuse him of so much at the time, since the statute of limitations had long since run out. However, in late 2022, New York City, supposedly with direct help of Carroll, along with other alleged survivors, passed the Adult Survivors Act, aka the ASA, which opened a window in which the statute of limitations could be overlooked in law. Meaning that on the very day the law took effect, Carroll was able to file a defamation and battery civil suit against Trump for the age-old crime which she had failed to report at the initial time. Now, in order not to drag this out too much longer, I'll simply summarize the court's conclusion by pointing out both that Carroll's confusing story proved, though not beyond any reasonable doubt, that Trump had sexually assaulted Carroll, but also that it didn't prove that he actually raped her, despite her entire story being based upon the idea that he had indeed raped her, which the jury concluded couldn't be proven to have happened, while simultaneously relying on the exact same set of non-evidence to conclude that he had still somehow sexually assaulted her. It was the epitome of a, well, we can't technically prove he did it, but we still have to find him liable for something sort of verdict. And thus the finding of liability and the continued ability for Carroll to sue and sue and sue some more, essentially. I must say, what's especially concerning to me is how Judge Lewis Kaplan determined that, despite even this clearly biased jury failing to find Trump liable for the alleged rape itself, Carroll could maintain that he had raped her. In other words, Carroll can continue to accuse Trump of a crime which the court of law couldn't even technically find him liable for. Yet if he denies it, she can continue to sue him for defaming her. Which doesn't even really make sense considering how she's seeking millions of dollars and endless relevance while maintaining the narrative that she's the one who's suffering the damages. Just saying. As for the belief-based finding of sexual battery, I wouldn't normally downplay such a scenario. However, in this case, my point is that the finding of liability is based upon the exact same sexually provocative story which could in no way whatsoever be proven to be true. Regardless, the court's standard didn't actually call for proof positive. It called for belief, not for belief beyond a reasonable doubt. Figure that one out. After all of that, if you don't at least have questions for her, I'll remind you that in 2012, years after she had allegedly been raped by Donald Trump, E. Jean Carroll was on social media stating that she was a massive, in bold letters, massive Apprentice fan. Additionally, after she had published her seemingly fantastical attention-seeking story in 2019, just over a year before the election, of course, she was on mainstream media essentially claiming that rape was sexy, in an interview so awkward that CNN had to cut to commercials, although they pretend that never happened, as they bring her onto their network for her latest media tour, this just in. As if that isn't enough reason to ask questions, I'll point out that Carroll's story is a replica of a 2012 Law and Order Special Victims Unit episode plot. Then again, those sorts of minor details weren't allowed into evidence in Trump's defense, though he didn't get the same benefit of the doubt. So, that's a roundabout way of me saying that I thoroughly disagree with Nikki Haley on the level of trust she has in the jury, etc. And with all of that being said, I spontaneously just have to say, just for your information, that a man by the name of Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn co-founder and Epstein Island visitor, who helped to fund, for example, a defense fund tied to Fusion GPS, which created the very same Steele dossier, which was used to accuse Donald Trump of Russian collusion, as well as later helping to fund E. Jean Carroll's rape case against Trump, has most recently funded Nikki Haley's primary campaign against Trump, although he pulled his support after she came up short in New Hampshire, since he was only supporting her in hopes of defeating Trump in the primary in order to support Joe Biden over Haley in the upcoming general election. If you ask me, although I'm not saying that correlation equals causation, or some conspiratorial cliche like that, there tend to be far too many connections for comfort in controversial cases such as these. Wow. That's an information overload. But my point is that, although I don't even plan to vote for Trump in the general election, I can recognize that most of the people, pundits, politicians, and even prosecutors who prosecute and persecute Donald Trump are no less shady than he is. Does it mean that he should be the president? No. Absolutely not, in my humble opinion. But if something doesn't make sense, I'm not going to pretend it does just to further feed and fuel a narrative. So there's that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch. Keep in tune. New content is coming soon. Peace.